Okay, Neil, we're live, buddy. Thanks for getting here.
Pleasure.
You're probably the one person in hospitality that doesn't need an introduction, but for people that just look at Rockpool and Neil Perry for what it is now and the beast that it is, walk us through the start from Barrenjoey from a macro level.
Mate, that's a long time ago. So
when was it? 84?
82.
82.
So I started in hospitality about 76 and, really spent 5 years front of house, 5.5 years front of house, which was great grounding. Ended up sales at McMahon's Point, being assistant manager and then manager, and it was great. Bought the wine, went to the markets, bought the fish because I probably knew more than the chef about fish because of my father. And
your dad was a fishmonger?
Well, no, he was a fisherman and a butcher, actually.
Okay,
so,
interesting.
butcher and a gardener. So he taught me about the seasons, and we fished down the south coast in summer and we fished in the north coast in winter, and we lived in Georges River, and he fished every weekend on the river. So I didn't really eat unless I was eating at a restaurant. I ate beautiful fresh fish, but it was only when we caught it, which was pretty much every week. So I used to go buy fish, buy the wine, learn a lot from buying, amazing back in those days. Incredible imported wines out of France at a fraction of the price they are now. No import duties, 8 francs to the dollar.
Wow.
We were drinking first growths and Dom Perignon and stuff like that. So it was really awesome.
Beautiful.
Learning to run a restaurant, and then in from 81 to 82, I did a year's worth of working around the countryside. Yeah. Damien Pignolet, which is where I cooked with Josephine, his wife, which is why my daughter's called Josephine.
Oh, really? When he was
amazing.
at
Claude's, beautiful cook. Just watching her hands and watching her work, and I worked beside her. And she sadly passed away in 87 December. And I think if I had a daughter, it was all first one was always going to be Josephine. So that's what happened in 94 with her. But going back, cooking with Josephine and Damien, cooking with Stephanie Alexander, cooking with Gay Bilson, cooking with Jenny Ferguson from Me and You, who was another really beautiful natural cook. Met Steve Manfredi there. Yeah. Formed a kind of lifelong friendship out at that stage with him, and ran into each other a lot through there. And then stood at the Pass 26 Barrenjoey House end of 82. Joan Campbell gave me my first review, which was stellar. I'd only been cooking for a year, so it was ridiculous. But there was no competition back then. There was like some good people cooking. Gay, Tony Bilson, Patrick Juillet, Martin Teplitsky, Claude Korn, Damien. There wasn't a lot of stuff there. So Peter Doyle, Greg Doyle, that we were all kind of, they were all a bit older than me, but they were all sort of cooking at a good high level. And then in January of 1983, Leo Schofield gave us an amazing write-up in the Sydney Morning Herald, came to Barrenjoey, sat there basically ate at Reflections, which was Peter Doyle, down the road, and gave us both 17 out of 20, 2 hats, and said the kid's a star. And
wow. How old were you then?
26.
Yeah, incredible.
So from then it just kind of exploded, really. And I really, if I look back now, I really didn't have the skills or the understanding of what I was doing. I was immersed in it for sure, and I was cooking the best I possibly could. But if I think about the background that I'd come from and the time that I'd been cooking, I was really raw and naive. But I think that was possibly one of the really alluring things about the way that I worked and sort of the way I delivered food, and people really responded to it. Yeah. It was really about flavour. Yeah. And then in 84, I went on a holiday, and I was still at Barrenjoey House. I went on a holiday to France and ate in the most amazing 3-star restaurants, Robuchon, Freddy Geridet in Switzerland, amazing meal at Alain Sandaran, which was called La Castrat, but is where Arpège is now, Alain Passard. And Alain Passard actually worked for him. And so I ate all over France, I think 21 days, 18 3-stars, probably 7 kilos. So drinking 76 Krug and, amazing things, and Romney-Contis, and it was incredible. Actually, it was as cheap to eat then in 3 stars in France as it was to eat at Barara in Sydney.
Incredible.
Now you've got to drop $1,000 without a decent drink to eat it up here. So it was really pivotal for me. I came back and I looked at the amazing food that I'd eaten, and I came to a really kind of fairly naive sort of end point where I looked at it and went, wow, these guys are cooking the most amazing food in France, beautiful French food. What am I doing cooking French provincial food, sitting at Barrenjoey House at Palm Beach in Australia? It was like a pivotal moment for me. So my father loved Chinese food, and we'd always cooked a lot of Chinese food. We had great Chinese friends, and we'd been to amazing banquets and eaten at their kind of weddings and their, Chinese New Year and Christmas, and they'd come to our house and cooked, and we'd been to their house when they were cooking. And so for me, really home style cooking, but also cooking at the highest end in Chinese was something I was really exposed to, in the early 60s when people were eating sweet and sour pork and chicken chow mein, and I was eating mud crab and abalone and red braised chicken and beautiful crisp skinned pigeons and all this sort of stuff that people really who were eating in Chinese restaurants just weren't seeing. So that was part of my really the passion and love, and I loved Italian food, and I just started reading a lot and eating a lot and loving Middle Eastern food. And so 84, I decided that all of those things were things that influenced Australia, that influenced me, and that was going to be in my food.
Yeah.
So
is your heritage Australian?
Yeah, absolutely. My father worked in a Andrews Meatworks actually, and was the manager.
Yeah,
and I used to go in and do school holidays and stuff, and lug meat around and things. And when I got my license, I used to do deliveries and things in school holidays. But one of the interesting things is that there are a lot of new Australians in the boning room and the slicers and packers. And
Victor Paharich probably.
Victor Paharich, yeah. And so, my dad was really curious always about food. He loved food. He used to cook a lot of Indian food and Chinese food. And so, of course, we were exposed to kind of salami and eggplant and interesting cheeses and pesto. And just things that we take for granted now, right? But we're talking about the 60s in Australia. And so we would eat this food at home because Dad loved, what he was seeing. I don't know, you've been on the boning floor. It's like, 7:30 in the morning, the bell rings and everyone sits down to have breakfast, washing the blood off their hands and whatever. And
very unique.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. And they're into all sorts of food that's been usually sent from their wives. And, again, we're talking the 60s, so most definitely sent from their wives. And so it was really Italian, Yugoslavian, Spanish, a little bit of Middle East. There was a really eclectic group of people.
Yeah.
So we learned a lot about food and flavors, and Dad made sure that we ate across those, as well as, being a butcher, I was always eating sweetbreads and liver and brains, and I just thought that was what you normally ate. So it wasn't sort of a drawback for me. It was only when kids would come over and we'd have crumb brains and smash them on toast for breakfast on Sunday that they go like, what's that?
And now they're a superfood.
Yeah. And, well, they're so delicious, right? So, I think that kind of realization, then that really shaped my career and who I am as a cook, and it helped me along with, Chrissy Manfield and Chong Lu in Adelaide and Philip Searle, who comes to mind as people who are really pushing the boundaries. And after that, David Thompson in the 90s cooking Thai food and being inspired by that. So really when I opened Rockpool in 1989, it was a culmination of all of those things. So there was Chinese and Thai and Middle Eastern and Moroccan and all sorts of really interesting things, as well as, homage to great, French basics and Italian and great pasta making, and all with a view to overlay amazing service and beautiful wine, and for all the food to be wine friendly, and for a curry to be sitting on the table, next to a sort of seared tuna with red wine sauce, and for them to feel like they were sitting at home together. It was really interesting. And
where'd you get the name from?
Well, Rockpool's interesting because it was really about my childhood. It was supposed to be a seafood restaurant. It morphed into something more than that, but I felt when I came out of the Blue Water Grill at Bondi, where I'd been doing all seafood and I'd been bringing seafood from all around the country. And I was sort of, Illabo lamb we were using that and a few things. We sort of started that really. But I couldn't find consistency of meat products. Butchers were sending one thing one day and, something else the other. And it was really difficult back in those days to say, I'm just doing Blackmore, I'm just doing Cape Grim, I'm just doing Rangers, and I'm supporting the guys and doing all the sorts of things that we can do now. So my feeling was that at the highest level, I couldn't get consistency of product, but we obviously can now. And so I pushed it in the seafood direction. And so, my whole life was running around Sydney and living in Georges River and it's a sandstone basin city, so it was in rock pools and we were rolling jeans up, or we were in shorts and we were grabbing crabs and grabbing urchins and oysters and small fish. And so to me, Rockpool was that beautiful experience of wading into a rock pool and seeing nature,
beautiful,
that was caught from the receding tide.
Yeah.
And then when I started talking to people, because Rockpool's a brand now, so people understand it stands for quality, assurance, it stands for strength and quality of service and quality of food and amazing produce.
Sexy food is what a friend of mine that we dined there the other night, and she hadn't been out. She was there with her husband, and she walked in and she said, I forgot how sexy this place is.
Yeah, well, that was the whole focus. And it is now. It's a brand that people, they trust, and they'll pay a premium because they know they're going to get delivery. But it wasn't then. So when I'd say Rockpool to people, they would go, oh, that's so clever because you're in the rocks. I hadn't really thought about that. And I just sort of went, wow, what a coincidence, because we're in the rocks. We're in the first place Australia was settled. We're by white people. We're in this wonderful seafood experience around the rock pools. And then, of course, now as we've become more and more aware of all the things that Australia is and the importance of, the first Australians and 60,000 years of food and culture. It's a really, it was a really wonderful experience to start in the rocks, where you can just imagine how beautiful it was, and how it's a city there now, but how it was nature. And
Did you sell Barrenjoey?
I split up with my partner there, and I split up with my business partner at the Blue Water Grill, and I went travelling.
Yeah.
And then when I came back, I could have had an opportunity to open a restaurant. There were some backers that wanted me to do something in New York. I'd cooked for them a few times at their house, and they really loved. They knew Blue Water Grill.
Yeah.
And Blue Water Grill was interesting because I came out of fine dining and then exploded into this kind of big seafood brasserie where we were doing like 350 covers a night, 5 of us in the kitchen. By virtue of the speed that it had to come out, it was literally like either cold dressings or warm dressings on fish, essentially off a charcoal grill, or a couple of things out of the pan, or a couple of things out of the fry. Yeah. Some salads, but it was 90% seafood. There was only 99% seafood. There was one non-seafood, one meat main course, and but it was completely Asian. It was all about Thai and Korean and Chinese flavors, and even some Indian, and it was interesting because Peter Karavidas was my first sous chef there.
Okay.
And Peter had come out of fine dining, out of working. Greg Doyle first in Australia, went travelling and worked for about 3 years in London with Roux Brothers and all that. So it was all French cooking for him.
Awesome.
And so when he started there, he was telling me the other day when I did a Rockpool Bar and Grill pop-up at his restaurant in Noosa, he said to me, I'd really inspired him to explore, the history of his heritage. I mean, he's half Sri Lankan. So he was standing there in 1986 going, hey, what's this white guy doing cooking this amazing seafood with all these brilliant Asian flavors in a really fantastic dining experience? And I'm half Sri Lankan, I'm cooking French food. So he came to the same realization that I'd come to a couple of years earlier on. And then, that's really caused him to explore all the amazing cultural heritage that he has inside him, and then obviously all the great things he's seen traveling the world.
Yeah. And it obviously exploded, the original Rockpool, but it was just that for a long time.
Yeah.
Like, what was the catalyst to go? Or maybe a first question for you is, were you driven by the food, or was this unlikely, amazing businessman always lurking in the background and people just weren't aware of it?
No.
Because you seem to have been able to create an incredible business that most people aren't in this industry.
Yeah, look, I think it's interesting. I mean, I've got a great business partner, Trish Richards, who, was involved in the original Rockpool group that we built. Trish and I, we're cousins, so she's known me my whole life. She's a bit older than me, and she looked after the financial side, and I looked after the creative and the delivery. And I think, although over time we both delved into each other's worlds, we trusted each other incredibly, and it gave both of us the opportunity to get the best out of each other. And so we were able to grow, but we didn't grow without issues. We had Rockpool, and we took then we did the MCA Cafe, which was great for us, and the catering. 2001 we opened that, and then we started opening restaurants through the 90s, which weren't so successful, and it was interesting. I mean, I think most people know that I've had ups and downs in life, and so we got to the point where we were probably employing 400 people, and we were losing a fair bit of money, because the bad ones always lose twice as much as the good ones.
What was it though, Neil? Like, clearly you were talented.
Yeah.
You had a good partnership. Was it just the wrong location, the wrong concept, the wrong time?
No. I learned something very important that I take to every single thing that I do now, and I took to as I regrew the group. When we retreated back to really only Rockpool at one stage in the Qantas relationship, was that I was really naive, because I don't want to say arrogant, because and it didn't come from an arrogant place. I was naive because I thought really great food, wine, service, experience is enough. And that's not necessarily enough. You're exactly right. Location, the demographic around you, all those things. When I look at some of the boys that I've seen this week and last week that have, pulled the pin on business,
long grain.
Location is, well, not so much long grain, it's probably rent and different things, but location can often be a killer, and you don't realise it, and it's hard to get people to change habits. Ant tracks are important, where people are moving and to and fro. And so Trish and I sat on the MCA balcony on 2000, just before the Olympics, heavily in debt, probably trading insolvently, as businesses do. And, we had a long discussion about what the options were. And one of the things that we would never do is stiff our suppliers because they're family, or our staff because they're family. So both of us, we've come from nothing. We're very family orientated. We've built an amazing team of people around us that really do relate to us as family, and we feel really responsible for them. So that sort of whole thing of kind of going into liquidation and wiping the debt and restarting at some stage was just not on the table for us.
Good for you.
So, Trish sold a house, I sold an apartment.
Put all your money.
No, look, you're in the right place at the right time. Luck plays an amazing amount in life. And so we were sitting at Rockpool. We had the MCA, massive sites for the Olympics. We had Rockpool at Darling Harbour, where the gymnastics and all that stuff were at the conference centre. Massive for us. We literally, made $1 million in 2 weeks. Extraordinary. Rockpool, as a matter of fact, it took them 4 days before they could trade the whole day. They just kept buying more food, and they just kept running out of food. They were getting smashed. So that then gave us enough cash flow with what we'd sold to continue our business, get to a point where we had Rockpool and Qantas. And then when you build a great brand and you have conviction and you believe in it, good things happen. So then we had the opportunity to start growing, and Rockpool Bar and Grill started, and then it all started from there. So, one of the great things was in 2002, I was, on holiday, and phone rings, and I answer it, and it's Scott Bowles from the Sydney Morning Herald. And he goes, "Hey, do you have any idea what this top 50 restaurants in the world is?" And I went, "Dude, you're telling me I don't know anything about it." He goes, "Oh, well, magazine in London have just put out, they've asked 400 people around the world what are their 5 favourite restaurant experiences. They've tallied it up, and they've created 50 restaurants in the world that these people have nominated. And I said, oh, that's cool. He said, you just came fourth in the world. So there's French Laundry, El Bulli, Gordon Ramsay, and Rockpool's number 4. And I was like, wow, okay, that's amazing. And then,
say the least.
And then the guys at Restaurant Magazine went, oh, that's pretty interesting. We just created a whole lot of press. Okay, let's do something really crazy. Everyone got an invitation next year, like, come to the awards. I mean, the awards now are just, massive. Hollywood. Yeah. The awards were in Roger Moore's Son's Cafe in London. And I think Roger was there, actually, from memory. But you know what? We all got on an airplane and we turned up. And so there was Thomas Keller and myself, and I don't think Heston was in that year, Ferran and Albert and all these amazing people. Tetsi, Nobu, we all went out for dinner afterwards, and that's where the start of the after party and everything started. But Rockpool finished 8th that year, and so we spent 7 years in that, and it was amazing for us because it was incredible to rub shoulders with some of the great chefs of the world, and gave me an opportunity to invite all of those guys down to do the ultimate dinners for Starlight, which were awesome, which Anthony supported with product, and we've raised great amounts of money, and then we were very lucky because John Alexander kind of came to me and said, hey, we want to do this great food precinct down in Melbourne, but we just don't want to do it with anybody else but you. We want you to underpin it. And so I went down and had a look at some sites, and what was really strong in my mind was that from all the learnings that I had from the 90s, where we had amazing people working for us. We had an amazing product. We had Sydney Morning Herald accolades, all 3 and 2 hat restaurants and what have you. And it still didn't work. It made me realize that you have to get the right location. And not only that, but the space that you stand in, the restaurant itself has to bring something it has to bring something to the experience. So then you put great food, the great experience for that, bring all these things, and then a little bit of luck, and you can make it happen because no one ever knows why a site works. But I was just sort of, John showed me a whole lot of sites in Crown, and I sort of said, and then we had dinner at a place called Giaconi's, which is where Rockpool Bar and Grill is now. Yeah. Amazing, triple ceiling heights.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Beautiful, all this glass looking out at the city. We had dinner, had a bottle of Tignanello. I can remember it so well. Went to the elevators to go up to my room. John saying that, I just said, John, if you give us that, we'll be down tomorrow. Yeah. And he said, well, that's not really what's on the agenda, but anyway, I'll see. Anyway, I got a phone call a week later and the job was on. So that was really awesome. Rockpool Bar and Grill was born, and we started in the October designing and so forth, and probably December actually. And then we finally opened October the next year, 2006. And really, I've probably got John to thank for, it's a big restaurant. I knew that I wanted to do something that was related to my heritage, which was really about meat and fish because of my father being a butcher.
Was it a JV with Crown?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not a license. It's our restaurant.
It's your restaurant.
We lease it. Yeah.
But they paid for the fit out?
They contributed.
They contributed, but it's yours for all intents and purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. Every staff member belongs to us.
You.
And that's a really important part of it. We've never licensed anything. I've been given that opportunity.
What about Rockpool Bar and Grill and your relationship with David Boyle? Doyle.
Well, what happened was John sort of said to me, you can do anything you like there because I trust you. I know you'll deliver. Yeah. But it has to have Rockpool in the name. Yeah. So I was way too big to do fine dining restaurants, 220-seat, 230-seat restaurant. So that's where the heritage part of, I've always wanted to do a steakhouse because my dad was a butcher. That steakhouse always had an amazing seafood program because fish runs through my blood. And so, the whole idea was I wanted to cook everything on wood fire. So there was going to be this big, beautiful grill in the middle of the restaurant. So Rockpool Bar and Grill it was, and then, so Trish and I went down there and I guess in a sense, a little bit gun shy from having lost a fair bit of money,
I bet.
in the 90s, and worked really hard to get out of a hole. So David Doyle came in that he was a great customer and friend, and he was interested in investing in restaurants and had a great wine cellar, And so, he invested money and became a partner, and we divested the risk. So the three of us then opened the Sydney Rockpool Bar and Grill, which again, amazing space. Perth Bar and Grill, amazing space. Spice Temple, Sydney in its own right, an amazing space because it was just a basement. And as soon as I walked in there, I knew what I wanted to do with it because I wanted a Chinese restaurant that didn't have any light because I wanted to create the magic through light. Cool. And I wanted sound to be a really important part of that. So in its own right, it suits what we wanted to do with it.
Yeah.
So we just kept growing, and then look, David and I had a falling out for whatever. He's a great partner. He was really instrumental in me being able to get where I am. Hopefully, he enjoyed the journey. Situation with us. And
did he own the real estate?
He owned the real estate in Sydney.
Yeah, okay.
So
and still does?
No, he sold it in the August before Trish and I sold into. Wow. And he sold into Quadrant, where we now own part of the Rockpool Dining Group together.
Amazing. Outside of Trish, who else has been, and your family, of course, who else have been there during those rocky times, like the really instrumental ones?
Oh, well, great friends, Barry McDonald, he's my bestie. So he's been there always supporting me. Great people in business. I mean, I've been lucky enough to have some fantastic people that I've...
David Coe?
One of the great human beings of all time.
Yeah, I had the good fortune of meeting David. When you think about all the people in the world who you just wish could get struck down by lightning because they have nothing really redeeming about them, and there are plenty of human beings like that. David was one of the most decent human beings I've ever met, so supportive. Incredible to lose somebody who had so much more to give. One of the most engaging people. You sit in a room with him and people would just light up when he spoke to you. He was so engaging. He was so into what you had to say. Yeah.
And the incredible thing was going to his memorial and having 2,500 people there. I was sitting in the front row. I just cried the entire time. It was so emotional for me. And you had 5 Australian rugby captains, 5 Australian cricket captains, 3 prime ministers, 4 premiers, people from the arts, people from sports, people from every walk of life who genuinely were touched by the man, who was an extraordinary human being. So he was a great mentor for me and helped me through a lot of things. Jeff Dixon, of course, I really met him a while after my dad had passed away, not long after really.
While you're at Qantas, or he was part of the reason you went there?
He's the reason I went there. Yeah. So, but we've had a kind of a really, we've had a 22-year friendship.
And he's a publican too, yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, he is, as
and
well.
And a Wagga or somewhere, yeah.
Oh, he's got
places
he's
everywhere.
Got pubs everywhere.
Yeah, okay.
But he's more like a father figure and great friend.
Yeah, nice.
I really love him. And Alan's a fantastic friend. He's an extraordinary human being, and just so highly intelligent and motivated, driven, great leader. What he believes in, walks the talk. And importantly, people follow. And I've met a lot of really awesome people. Like Liv Worth, who runs Loyalty, and Gareth Evans, who runs Jetstar. Really amazing people that have a great deal of respect for, and just always in awe of their understanding of marketing or business acumen or something. So I've been lucky enough from really very humble beginnings to be touched by a lot of incredible people. I mean, you don't think about when you're cooking and you're young and you're running around the playground that you're going to be kind of cooking for Qantas for 22 years, one of the most iconic Australian airlines, that you're going to be sitting down with Michael Hutchins and listening to late night recordings in the studio after eating with him at the Golden Century, or, sort of shaking Elle Macpherson's hand and, really having a heart attack when she was about 19. Or
I would have had a heart attack for sure.
Or all the, superstars, or, just the other day, it's, I'm cooking for the government for Qantas and know them all, and know Malcolm really well, and Gladys was in at the restaurant the other day, having lunch with her guys who did a great job with the campaign, and you don't think about what a privilege it is to shake a premier or a prime minister's hand, or do the sorts of things that to talk to them about sustainability, or to talk to them about industrial relations, or talk to them about immigration, and for people to actually listen to a cook that's sort of come from, nowhere, and you get to move in circles that you would never have believed, because this industry is so amazing.
Yeah, your old man would be pretty proud, I dare say.
Yeah, he would be. He would be. He was pretty proud, and he passed away in '94, the year that Josephine was born, and just hung on to see her. I think he thought I'd never get around having children, but he'd be. He was very proud then, so he'd be wildly proud.
Good on you, man. Good on you. The decision to not sell to, be invested in by Quadrant, and we'll talk a bunch about why you chose Quadrant in a minute. But if you didn't do that, where would Rockpool be today? Would you have kept on growing, and how would you have done it?
Yeah, we would have kept on growing, I think. We've got great people working for us, and one of the issues for us would have been, where do we find the finance? Where do we find the next opportunity? So I have no doubt we would have kept growing. In a smaller business like ours, kind of vertical growth is difficult. But, we had the best resource, which is people. All your business is about people. No, the reason, I was kind of just before my 60th birthday. I've been working, my whole life. I've worked 2 lifetimes. And an opportunity came along that I just never thought would.
A reverse inquiry?
Yeah. I mean, I've never.
We know those guys are always on the hunt for.
Yeah, and I've been approached to write a book, to be on TV, to join Qantas, to join David Jones, to do I've never gone out and canvassed anything, and I think that's always a really great way to be. So the opportunity or the question was asked, and Chris was a fantastic customer, and John Adjamus was sort of looking after the deal, and Tom Pash, great CEO of Urban Purveyor, and then you've got this amazing brand Rockpool, and these two join up. And one of the things, I saw a lot of people in my life time, a lot of people that I really respect and are great cooks, walk away from this business with nothing.
Yeah.
And
way too many. And
or
worse now, they take their own life, or
well, there's a whole lot of things, as we know.
There's no industry like it in the world. Like
it's a pressure point situation, and also it's so easy for a business to fail. There's so many moving parts in this one, and the margins are so thin, and so the opportunity came to realize more than I could ever imagine. And the 21st century is a different place. I mean, I think I've lived through the golden age of small restaurants and opening your own restaurant and growing, and it's a different age now.
An age where you think the groups are the only ones that can truly thrive?
I don't think they're the only ones. I think it gets more and more difficult for the independent operator, and whether that's rents, government regulations, industrial relations, customer habits, interrupters like delivery, the internet's changing things, what we do back of house, front of house, operating systems, marketing. There's a slew of things that a young chef in 1982, when he was rattling the pans at Barrenjoey House, just didn't have to worry about.
Yeah.
I've lived through random breath testing coming in. I've lived through, fringe benefits tax. I've lived through the GFC. I've lived through. Trish and I borrowed $1.8 million when we first opened Rockpool in '89. It was a recession we had to have at 18% interest.
Wow.
I've lived through all of those things, and one of the things that I think now is the world in every industry is a different place. And so for me to be able to, and a lot of people have looked at it and gone, oh, you sold out and whatever. And it's like, well, I'd just say that to people that
it's basically the stupidest comment
it's
on
the most
planet,
stupidest comment.
It's insulting.
I want to build a great restaurant group, and I want to go overseas, and I want people to be able to invest in it, and I want the business to be real, and I want my people who are involved in an equity situation that have worked for Trish and I and David for a long time to have their moment as well, and for them to grow within the business. So the ability for me to change people's situations is really great. But the most important thing is, for the industry, I just want to value it. So I want people to say, yes, a restaurant's worth money. And to a bank, you can invest in that. And if you get 5 restaurants together, yes, it's worth something, because then you can get some momentum going. And, it might start with Rockpool Dining Group and Merivale and Lucas and a few of these other guys. But more and more people are going to get the momentum to come along and grow businesses that have a critical mass. They can get to a critical mass. They have respect with landlords so that they can actually get proper deals. They get the first site choices so that they can get the right positions. They have a relationship with the bank. They get great financial advice. They're growing a great team that's eager and wants to build. And then all of a sudden, we've got a restaurant industry that's respected. I mean, no one wanted to invest in restaurants in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. They were just seen as a death trap.
Yeah.
Made especially the banks.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'll invest. You put $1 million in escrow over here in my bank, and I'll
give
put
you 500,000.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that was their strategy back in those days.
How have you found it? Like Quadrant are highly regarded, highly successful. Chris Hadley's probably one of the most successful in the country. They'd done QSR and a few other things. They'd never done anything like that, like what they've done with you. Yeah. What have they brought to the table? And I suppose for some people that don't quite understand the depth of the assets that you now hold, it's not just Rockpool, but have they been really able to add intellectual and business clout to the relationship?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, first off, Chris is a fantastic guy, and the guys who sit on the board, Justin is great, and Jonathan, JP, and Alex, so they really put us under the pump to perform and also to answer. So, often the biggest issue I think with most small businesses is that you make a lot of decisions and you don't necessarily have a lot of due diligence over the top of that. So we can kind of do whatever we want, but we have to make the argument and we have to be really clear and careful about where we're deploying capital, where we're growing, what's that asset going to bring to the business, and importantly, is it sustainable? And so those guys give us advice on all that. I mean, they've run a myriad of businesses. They're probably one of the most respected guys in the world, not just in Australia. And I think one of the reasons for it is that they really think about how the business grows strategically. Importantly, what the next investment situation is, so either a trade sale or an IPO, and making sure that they've got a sound business, not drained. There's something on the table for everybody, and it can continue to grow afterwards. Because one of the things that's important for Chris and the guys is that the business is set up for success, and whatever the sale looks like, it continues to succeed. There are a lot of private equity firms that sort of seem to sort of suck the marrow out of things. And
Meyer, Dick Smith.
Classic example is all of a sudden, the shareholders get no oxygen. And I think the great thing about Chris and why Quadrant have got such an amazing reputation is they have very few failed businesses after they pass them on. Yeah,
Kathmandu is probably a classic example that people know super well. What is, like, if you talk trade sale, who would buy it? An international player? There's no one in Australia, surely, that's big enough.
No, and either an international finance company that was looking to IPO on another exchange most likely, or a trade sale would be another large group around the world. So, what we're really looking at is just having the opportunity to sort of continue to grow the business, more financial injection, more opportunity to grow in other parts of the world, Asia, America.
Have you got anything overseas yet?
We're not, but we look like we'll start in the next sort of 12 months. Yeah, there's a definite strategy to take 3 or 4 of our brands to America, potentially a couple into Asia. We know we're kind of, particularly my reputation is very strong in Asia. And, I know a lot of the landscape in America as well. And Tom, our CEO, is, really well-versed because he's an American who's been doing, business at the highest level in America for a long time.
And how's that well-documented relationship between you guys? Is it all just a Tina... What's the saying?
Storm in a teacup.
Storm in a teacup.
Yeah, I don't know where all that comes from. I mean, it's like...
Journalists, man, you know that. Come on, you've been around long enough.
It's like anything. It was, it's sort of like, with your girlfriend or your wife to say that you never had a fight. I mean, Tom and I come from different worlds and we disagree about a lot of things, but we always get to the point where we both agree the way forward. He's an incredibly smart CEO, very hands-on. really incredible financial savvy, and gets the business. And he and I sort of have content discussions about Australia versus America, because that's his major background. Although after 3 years in Australia, he's really kind of getting the psyche and difference between Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Perth. All the nuances that happen there. So he's really strong in that, and I respect that part of it. But that doesn't stop me from standing up and saying, hey, this is what I think. So I think the situation is it's great for both of us to be there, because it gives the business more heavier, more rounded feel, and probably makes us make the right decision more often than not.
Yeah, and is Trish still heavily involved?
No, she kind of retired really about 2.5 years. She's financially involved in the business and shareholding, but she kind of looks after me and herself and her investments, and also our Qantas project, and we do a little bit of Neil Perry consulting with stuff.
And is Qantas in the deal?
No, that's all separate with us.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Well, that's been a 22-year relationship, and it's very personal for me, because I feel incredibly proud to be asked by, let's say Australian icon. I mean, one of the world's most iconic brands. You could ask Americans or
of course
Europeans or Asians, what is Qantas, and they would all know. And of course, that flying kangaroo, it's kind of, there should almost be a little tiny plot of earth on there when you kind of run down the runway in London or LA or Hong Kong or wherever you are, and you step on that plane. It's like you're on terra firma right back in Australia. So to really be asked to do food, wine, service, do the whole menu, do all of the things that we do there. I have 12 full-time staff plus myself that work on that project. It's kind of like being thrown the number 10 jersey for the Wallabies and saying, go be the playmaker. So
fun.
Pretty proud of that. I mean, I love, Matt's a mate of mine. I love what he does for Singapore, but he probably does a half a dozen dishes a year, and we do about 800.
Classic.
And the entire menu. So that's great.
And tell me, from a supplier's perspective, does private equity change that? Like, is it less about the relationship and more about the metrics?
No, the situation is that there's a really good understanding of where various brands and restaurants sit within the portfolio, because we go from fast casual, fun casual, premium.
Yeah.
And in the premium space, the most important thing are the ingredients. That's not to say that it's not in any other part of the business, because we focus strongly on that as well. But in the premium space, we make sure that we really look after all of our great suppliers, and I haven't changed anybody that I've used previously. And Blackmore's ranges, Cape Grim. We seek out. We're just working with a guy called Copper Tree Dairies for some dairy cattle, which is really interesting, high acidity and beautiful butteriness. And we work with some individual. We buy lots of bodies because we can around Australia and break them and sell them, uniquely and individually. They might not necessarily be a run of that's always on the menu.
Yeah. Is that part of your dad's legacy influence that you actually do have in-house butchers?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The whole idea was, if it's a steakhouse and if all we're putting on the plate is a steak that's being cooked over wood with a lemon on the side, then, okay, we haven't put much effort into making a sauce and masking the beautiful flavour. But we put a lot of effort into making sure we've got a relationship with an incredible supplier that made sure the carving 3 years ago was really fantastic. The lifespan is really well and done and stress-free.
Yeah.
The slaughter the same. The cow, broken, comes to us, and we dry age it for a period of time, anywhere from 35 to 70 days, and our butcher cuts it in-house, and then it goes downstairs without being squished or whatever on a tray, and goes into our fridge, and then goes onto the grill when it's ordered. I mean, that's our kind of 3-year commitment. Not we don't need to worry about a secondary source on a amazing piece of meat, because we've actually had a 3-year focus on how that beast is getting to us.
Yeah, get it. And have you seen people, your customers, change? Like, and maybe if we use Rockpool, because you've got so many, as you said before, across different spectrums, the consumer become more discerning. We want pasture fed. We want to understand the provenance of what we're eating.
Yeah, look, I think generally all around the world, particularly people who really enjoy eating out and can afford it, really are interested in provenance. Restaurants have been talking about sustainability for a long time. It's starting to really catch now. We talk about sustainability and food waste and all the things that concern us, because we're in an industry where we have to make sure that we look after all those things, because without them, we can't do what we do. So we've got to look after the oceans, and we've got to look after the planet, and we've got to make sure that we're getting solutions that have longevity and are sustainable, and other people are really starting to think about that. But, I've kind of grown up in Australia. I was born in 1957, so I've seen quite a lot. And I've seen Australia change from a country where no one really cared where the coffee was coming from. Nobody really cared much about how good the bread was. If I didn't get my fruit and vegetable delivery and I had to run down to get some lettuces from the shop, I could get mignonette or cos. Probably mignonette and iceberg back in the 70s. To a country that's flourishing with amazing produce. David Thompson and I used to have one supplier we could get kaffir limes and fresh turmeric and lime leaves and things from in 1991. So that stuff's in the supermarket now.
Yeah.
So Australians have travelled, we've eaten a lot, we've grown, our chefs have travelled, our front of house have travelled, they've come back. The internet, computers, visualization that you can have all around the world right now. Don't have to wait for the next book to come out. You can see what the guys are cooking today.
Yeah.
All of those things have added to the education of the customers as well as the people who are cooking and serving. So it really is that we now, whether we're flying on Qantas or we're having people dine in our restaurants, we've really got savvy, engaged people who understand and require, good crafted cooking, great sourcing, fantastic service, and a great experience. Going back to one of the things that was so exciting about 2002, you've just finished 4th in the world on the top 50 restaurant list, was that my whole focus with every single person who works for us is that we know why we do what we do, and that is to create great memories. And so when that happened, I thought, wow, we've created great memories.
Yeah.
So that's our focus, and we do that through our care philosophy, and we focus very strongly on doing the best we can today and tomorrow doing better. And I think that's part of the evolution of our restaurants. We never sit there and go, okay, we're really happy with what's going on. Yeah. We know we can get better. We know we can do a better service. We know we can maybe treat the produce a bit better. We know we can improve our craft. We know that the service staff could be more educated. We know all those things that we have to do every day to get better and better.
And what about that branding piece? Does it all filter down from Rockpool, and you apply that same care philosophy amongst every venue, and it's just same but different?
No, exactly. No, the care philosophy runs through the whole. As I sort of brought it to the group when we joined, and really it runs through. It doesn't matter if you're at a Bavarian or you're at a Fratelli Fresh or a Saki or a Rockpool. The main aim is to make sure that the customers have a great experience.
Yeah.
They walk away with that memory like, wow, okay, I just had a great schnitzel and 5 beers and my mates, we were going off and the music was fantastic. Sure, different demographics buy into different experiences within our restaurant group. But at every single one, whether it's Burger Project, I just want people to walk away and go, yeah, hey, I get it. They got whole muscle meat from Cape Grim. They cut it. They minced it. They've hand-formed it into a patty. All right, no one's going to do better than that in every single store.
Yeah.
So this is a great burger. And so, whether it's that or it's at Rockpool and someone looking at a Cape Grim 36-month dry-aged, beef and just going, wow. It's that creating that memory, that moment, that, and hey, it's up to the service staff and the girls on the desk and the managers. I mean, every moment of engagement in a restaurant is an opportunity to bring the most important thing that a restaurant can bring. And it's really important for the future, actually, because, we want to fight back against dark kitchens and cloud kitchens and home delivery and disruptors from the internet and robotic cooking. Every single moment that we're in a restaurant where we can catch a gaze, where we can help a person, where we can deliver knowledge, it's bringing humanity to the business. And humanity, it's not important just for the restaurant business, it's important for everything that we do in life, because at the moment in this world, there's not enough humanity. I mean, hey, we had 2 great wars, a Great Depression in the last century, and we've got Syria now. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
Where everybody in the world squares off and goes, oh, well, you pick a team and you pick a team and we'll just blow the shit out of everybody. I mean, I just cannot believe that the humanity in people, can't stop that. It drives me crazy.
No, it's a pretty noble philosophy. How do you measure it, Neil? Other than repeat visits to venues, do you actually do any kind of net promoter score with customers or?
Yeah, look, I think from that perspective of as like we do with Qantas and so forth, we don't do a lot of research. We have a lot of data.
Yeah.
So we know what all our
captured at point of sale.
Yeah, and now with Jimmy or Fork as it's called, sorry. We've got a fairly sophisticated phone booking, so we're just grabbing so much data from people.
Yeah, got it.
And we're seeing people eat sometimes over three of our restaurants, our brands, in a week, 8 to 10 in a month, where they'll go to Saki, they'll go to Rockpool, they'll drop into a burger project, they're at Rosetta, so it's really extraordinary, and we're able to track people, and the more data we can get, we've got a pretty sophisticated back of house suite, so, we can look at, if we really want to, we can look at real time, what the registers are doing, sales per item, dollars, customers, hour, minute, you name it. So
incredible. We
have people who dive into that part of the business because it's important. It gives us the information to be able to make the right decisions.
You would have had that back at Barrenjoey in 82, wouldn't you?
Mate, we had handwritten dockets, and I tell you,
I bet you did, man.
Not many waiters can write very well.
Would you do it all again, man?
Yeah, man, I love the business. It's an extraordinary. I've had an extraordinary life out of it.
You look happy.
I didn't train as a chef. I fell into it. I think I was always meant to be in the business because of what my dad did and how he brought me up, and exactly the same philosophy and all the learnings that he gave me as a child and a young man are exactly the things that drive me now. Seasonality, the quality of the ingredient, relationships, caring. They're all things that my father set up for me for my life. And I sit here today, the person I am, because of that. And I couldn't imagine for a minute doing anything else. I wouldn't want to do anything else. And you know what? I get up every single day today at 62, feet hit the ground, and I love going and being with my people and seeing my customers and looking at that beautiful food, and when I get the chance, eating it, because I love eating as well.
Yeah, I bet it. Will you continue on post-exit from Quadrant?
I think so. Look, I think it's a pretty important part of the business is for Tom and I and the management team to take it to the next thing. I couldn't imagine retiring. I'd probably drive everybody crazy if I did that.
Including yourself.
Yeah, and I think, I've got this amazing, beautiful, big business, and there's an opportunity to have a Rockpool in LA maybe, and a Rockpool maybe in Singapore, and one in Shanghai. And
what about Aspen, man? You love it there.
And one in Aspen.
It needs another good restaurant.
I'll open up next to Matsuhisa and put a spice temple.
Hadley will pay for that.
Yeah, but I mean that's the opportunity to continue to grow with this group is amazing, and for my consulting things to flourish hopefully, and I take kind of a lot of solace. I'm not really sort of politically minded along the same lines, but take solace in the fact that Rupert Murdoch's still sort of punting on at 87 or whatever.
Warren Buffett the same.
Yeah. And I think I'd probably lose my mind or get Alzheimer's or something if I stopped thinking at 24 hours, 24/7.
Don't do that. Timing wise, obviously the planets aren't perfectly aligned for Quadrant at the moment. They're patient, I dare say.
Yeah, look, they haven't been in the business for a long time. They've been in it for a time where they normally start to look for an exit opportunity because, again, the funds have shareholders and they have returns, but they're getting good return out of it in any case. But they're the kind of guys who they really enjoy the business, to be honest. I always joke at the board meetings about, like, Chris, you're not getting a booking when you're out. No VIP bookings for you. But he's vegan now, so it's really painful.
That's ridiculous. He'll come back, man.
We'll have to get him back on the steak.
He will, man.
But I think they're pretty committed to, again, growing it, giving the next owner and us an opportunity, and taking it to its full.
How big is it now, revenue-wise?
We're sitting about 450 million and about 45 million run rate. So we reckon we'll put another 10 mil on that next year with our openings. Oh, it's a big restaurant group. It's probably us and Maryvale, and the rest are kind of distant second.
Congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you.
It's super impressive.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on, Neil.